This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. And folks, here we are on June the 29th, 2023, and we have a wonderful filmmaker on the show with us today. Yes, he has made a number of, he's got quite the history, uh, with a lot of interesting exploitation movies and some interesting talent he was involved with. I'm talking about Mr. Matt Cimber. How do you do, Matt?
Hi, nice to hear from you. I
Yes.
love Canada. I
Oh,
have
thank you.
I worked. I took Jayne Mansfield once to Canada
Mm-hmm.
in a play, a summer play that we did. It was a tour, and it turned out to be one of the greatest moments of my life. We were playing in a town just north of Detroit, across the border. It was uh, a place for people to come that was a camp and whatnot. It was kind of exclusive. And while we were there, the Canadians had, well, the first Western country to purchase wheat from the Russians. So the Russians decided to send an exclusive group to tour Russia to acknowledge that they've done that, that they bought the wheat. And when they heard Jayne Mansfield was playing in this theater, they arranged for them to buy the first two rows of the theater for their group. And the day that they were supposed to come, there were Russian Secret Service guys all over the theater looking under chairs and whatnot. But it was kind of wild, and they were very excited about meeting Jayne Mansfield. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this was a big event for them. And so Jayne, of course, the play, Jayne was already 8 months pregnant with my son. And she was playing it pregnant. It was written for a pregnant leading lady. In any event, when we finally got to the play, I was peeking through the side, to look at them, and they were all sitting in the first two rows, and the place was packed. And the thing that was interesting was the Canadians would laugh at the jokes. It was a comedy. And of course, the first two rows sat there blank face because they didn't understand English. So they were, in any event, at the end of the play, the Russians threw a huge party on the stage for the cast and to meet these great people. In any event, the time came, and out on the stage there was caviar galore. It was the most elaborate party I think I've ever been to. But we were partying on the set in the theater, and all of a sudden these guys came up on stage, and they were led by this one short man, and it looked like the mafia. They were wearing those suits from Europe, the thick woolen suits. And of course, Jayne didn't speak Russian, and they didn't speak English. But what was amazing, Jayne spoke French, and so did this fellow. Well, they met, and he was the most charming guy you could imagine. He was the general. I can't think of his name right now. He was the general that protected Moscow when the Germans were really coming on to grab Moscow. And she couldn't drink, of course, but the party began at about 11 o'clock at night, and we were still going at 1 o'clock in the morning. Everybody talking. Anyway, it was a great memory of Canada for me. I loved it. I've been many other places in Canada, but I enjoyed it. What's the city on the West Coast?
Vancouver.
Huh?
Vancouver.
You have to talk loud.
Vancouver.
Vancouver. Mm-hmm. We went to a festival in Vancouver in which they show which film?
Which?
Huh?
Which Who Came from the Sea?
Was it 100? No.
No, I think it was Which Who Came from the Sea, because I remember.
Yeah, okay.
Which Who Came from the Sea?
The Witch Who Came from the Sea, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they showed it there at this festival, and it was raining. And when we pulled up to the theater, it was amazing to me. The line going into the theater went all the way around the theater, and the people were waiting in the rain to see the film. It was really kind of fantastic. You know, yeah. I didn't even think they ever heard of The Witch Who Came from the Sea, but it was very well received. In any event, that's my Canadian story.
Well, I must say too, for anybody that hears this, we're being joined also by Lynn Fero, who is assisting Matt with this. And welcome, Lynn. I thank you for your assistance here.
Sure, happy to be here.
Yep. Matt, I would love to get your backstory and how you got into the business.
Well, I started at Carnegie Hall when I was 14 years old. Mm-hmm. And my sister was an opera singer, kind of very well known, but at the time she was training, so she was getting coaching at the studios in the back of the building of old Carnegie Hall, magnificent place. And I was 14 years old, and my mother and her lessons were on Saturday. My mother worked, and she would not allow me to be alone on Saturday. So I had to escort my sister to Carnegie Hall, and I would sit out in the hallway while she was getting her lesson. And the door across the hallway was open, and in there was a great impresario. Her name was Maria Spenskaya, and she was the teacher, the coach, and she was married to a very famous man. I didn't know who either of them were, but she had a scene study class, and all the actors in her group were in Broadway plays.
She was married to Michael Chekhov.
Yeah, she was married to Michael Chekhov.
The son of.
And if you know anything about film, you understand. And he would come in, and I mean, all I did was to clean the chairs up at the end of the game. But eventually, I started getting involved. In other words, she'd let me coach the actors. I'd read the scripts to them when they were rehearsing their scenes. And I started, I watched her work, and I started to stage some of the stuff. And it was kind of fun. And what was amazing was that after we worked for 2 or 3 weeks on a scene, then Michael Chekhov would come in and he'd redo everything we did. And when I watched him work, he was so brilliant. It was amazing to see what this man could do and what he found in just a scene. Now, they were all famous plays that they were doing scenes from, but it was an incredible experience because I was with her for a long time. After a year, he left and came to Hollywood, and he was hired to coach the biggest stars in Hollywood in some of their roles. I mean, he coached Clark Gable, he worked with Katharine Hepburn. He was magnificent, you know. So in any event, that's really where I got started. And that's where I learned I learned what the basics of acting was. She used to put them through basic classes to get to the inner souls, as she would say. Mm-hmm. But there was a whole conglomerate of Russian people who had escaped Moscow, the Moscow Arts Theater. Marie was the leading lady of Moscow Arts Theater, and it was amazing how much they knew and how much the Actors Studio really respected her. Everybody respected her. She was tremendous, but she had a lot to do with me. I went to Columbia to attend some classes that she arranged, and she was an incredible lady. I don't know if you've ever heard of Maria Spenskaya. Maria Spenskaya eventually was a lady in movies, in the old movies, who used to say, "Oh, it's the full moon and the werewolf is coming out." But there was a great attachment, and I think I learned my craft in 2 or 3 years there with her. You know, when I used to go every Saturday, except when I had to play football. But it was an amazing, amazing experience. And that's where I got started. Now, there was an empty basement on East 62nd Street in New York City. And I had a friend of mine who was just graduated law school. And he said, "You know, there's a new art coming now. It's called Off-Broadway. Off-Broadway is going to become really popular." There were only 1 or 2 theaters that were doing things at the time. This is back in, the late 50s. And he said, "Why don't we build a theater?" So he arranged to get the lease on this property on East 62nd Street, right by the bridge. And it was a small, not theater and around, but it was a 3/4 theater. And that's where I started directing, and we got the New York Times to come to all our openings. I mean, all of a sudden, Theater East, it was called, became kind of well known within the community. And we did everything to survive. I mean, if you could imagine, our rent back then was $600 a month. on the east side of Manhattan. It was amazing. And so that's really where I started. And then I worked as a freelance director, doing summer stock, summer stock out of Westport, which is in Connecticut, and is revered as one of the great summer stock theaters. And I started staging road companies. And it was exciting and it was great. I eventually worked up to, I did 4 or 5 Broadway revivals and a few more plays. There was a theater down in Greenwich Village that was quite famous. And I did a play that eventually Jayne did the movie 2 years later, when we were connected after doing the play with her. In any event, that was basically my background.
You know, I believe Single Room Furnish was the last film for Jayne Mansfield. I was just
Yeah.
wondering, because I know you were married to her, how did you two come to meet and what was she like?
Well, as much as I was working as a director, you made very little money.
Hmm.
So to support myself, I would do whatever plays I could pick up and get paid for. In any event, the word got around that Jayne Mansfield was coming east to do a revival Bus Stop. And as the word within the industry was, they hadn't yet set the cast or director. She was then tied to William Morris Agency. And I called a friend of mine who was an agent at William Morris, and I said, "Can I come up and see you?" And I went up and I said, "Look, I'd like to try and grab that job of staging, Bus Stop." And he said, "Well, Matt, Jayne Mansfield is a major star. She has the okay on the director and the cast." I said, "Well," he said, "look, I can't guarantee that they'll accept you." He knew my work as a stage director. And he said, "She's she's on her way to Rome to do a film before the play." He said, "Supposing I arrange that you meet her and you talk to her." He says, "That much I could do." So it was arranged that I meet her at her hotel where she was stopping off from California to go to Rome. And I went to the hotel, and she was, of course, an hour and a half late. And I sat in the lobby and waited for her. And I knew she had arrived when everybody got a Twitter in the lobby. And she said, "Come on upstairs." And she had jeans on and she had a date that had taken her to Greenwich Village. And we went upstairs and it was all just social talk. And she said, "I started on Broadway in my career. My first major job was to star in a Broadway play," which I'm sure you're aware of. Uh, but we didn't talk about the business or the play, Bus Stop, at all. And she went upstairs and she said, look, I hope you don't mind, but she says, I have to pack because I'm catching a plane in the early morning. So I sat there and we talked about New York and Broadway and doing plays on Broadway, but we did nothing about who's going to be the director. So finally, after a bit, she said, look, I'm sorry, but I have to get some sleep. I've got to get up early in the morning. I said, okay. And I got up to leave. And nothing was ever mentioned. And I started for the door, and she said, she said, is there something you'd like to know? I said, well, have you decided about your direct? She said, no, you direct the play. Just like that. She said, you direct the play. I said, oh, well, thank you. I said, what about the cast? And she said, well, you're the director. You select the cast. And she said, I'm excited to work with New York actors. So that was it. And she took off for Rome for a month. And I started casting the play. And every actor, all the actors were known actors in New York. They all wanted to be in the play with her. And it was a lot of fun. She finally showed up from Rome, and when she came in to the rehearsal, and we were rehearsing in a studio on 45th Street in Broadway, and it was summer. And when she arrived, we heard the whole rumble out on the street. She was getting out of the cab, and the place went crazy, people seeing her. She came upstairs, and she didn't have a copy of the play for the rehearsal, and we sat around in a circle to read the play. And she said, I said to the stage manager, please get Miss Mansfield a copy of the play. She said, I don't need it. And everybody looked at each other. And she said, I know the play already. And that was shocking. And she won them all over. It was amazing. Her cast was terrific. It was the girl that played the maid on the series. What was the series
Brady
again?
Bunch, Ann B. Davis.
Huh?
Brady Bunch, Ann B. Davis.
Uh,
Ann B. Davis.
Ann B. Davis
She played
played the hostess, but there were several other people in there. The girl who won the role for where she played the blind girl with the black fellow she meets in the park with Shelley Winters. What was the name of that? Anyway, she played the young girl in the play, and that was it. And from that time on, we got along fabulously. We had no love affair. And when the time came for the finale, she said, why don't you come to California and try something in movies? She said, I said, well, she said, if you come out, she said, I've got a big house. Or was that an exaggeration of in a reverse exaggeration, actually? Her house was like 35 rooms, and she said, come out and stay at the house. She said, and I'll take you to Fox. And she was incredible, because when we went to Fox, she arranged for me to spend a week in editing, a week in photography, a week. I mean, I learned, and all the guys that were at Fox at the time were people who had lived through the 30s. They were really experienced and knowledgeable, and that was a great experience for me also.
And of
As
course,
far as the play goes, I adapted some of it, and she said, "I know I could play this. I know I could do this." And the producer at the studio said, "Look, if she wants to do it," and I ended up taking that play, uh, single room furnished,
mm-hmm.
and adapting
It was based on
the play
Laurent, right?
Huh?
It was based on the play Laurent, wasn't it? Single Room Furnished was based on the play Laurent.
No,
No?
no, it was based on single room furnished. What's the other name for an apartment in Manhattan?
Walk Up?
Huh?
Walk Up?
Walk Up. It was, Walk Up was the original name of the play. That's how I connected with Jayne.
Mm-hmm. I hate to go down a bad memory, but I mean, she obviously had a tragic death as their um is there anything you want to say about that, like where you were when you heard the news? I don't believe, yeah, you weren't in the vehicle when it was crashed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I know it's a bad memory. I'm really sorry that happened.
well, yeah, the whole world was sorry.
Mhm.
She was a popular girl,
Mhm.
but she was going through a bad time then.
Yeah.
She and I had separated, and she was, she was a little lost, but things got awkward for us
Mhm.
because I wanted my career out there, and she wanted me to manage her. In
Mhm.
fact, when I told her that I wanted a divorce and that I had to stop worrying about her bookings, her crew, her manager. I said, "Look, I'm a director and I really want to concentrate." We moved to New York for a while, and well, yeah, it's a hard memory.
Yeah. Well,
Hard
let's
memory. The children were a major part of her life,
Mhm.
and well, one of them has done very well. A couple of them have done very well. Jane Marie, and of course Maria. Yeah, uh, it just is very difficult.
Well, let's move on to the witch that came from the sea. I watched this in preparation. This is one of your films I watched in preparation for this interview, and really loved Millie Perkins in this film. And talk about this film, making this film, and working with Millie.
Yeah, I did two films with Millie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that was the first one. She she was terrific. Her husband was the author. Well, he mailed me the script from Yale. He was teaching at Yale, And he mailed me the script, and I read it, and I got back in touch with him. I said, look, to do this script and give it the life that it needs, we'll be run out of town. It'll be the end of my career. It'll be the end of your career. I think we have to forget it. She said, what's the matter? I said, it's just too raw. It's too raw. I don't think an American audience or any audience is really prepared for this yet. And she said, what do you mean? I said, well, to play this film truthfully and not worry about anything about what the what the public is going to say about it. The British condemned the film. And then after about 3 or 4 years later, they wrote me a beautiful letter saying we're sorry and we recognize it as a mistake in condemning the film. You know, it was very nice. In any event, I have to tell you, she was shocked when I told her that she's going to have to work semi-nude in some of it, to keep the. And then, of course, the whole idea of the young girl was very difficult at the time to find a girl to do that. Was the daughter of one of the actors who had worked for me. We were very lucky.
Did
I
did
saw her. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, did Millie have any reservations about doing the scene where she ties the two football players to the bed and castrates them?
Yeah, she
That was
did. But
brutal.
by the time we got to that scene, she lived with me. She literally, I don't think she was happy about it, but she did it. She's a trooper. She's a phenomenal trooper. And she said, hey, I never apologized for the scene. She understood why I was doing it. And I think it needed to have that kind of reality in it for you to accept, what we were trying to say in that film. You had to
Yep.
get over, you know. And to this day, I still don't like directors who have a girl and a guy go into bed and they're going to do a love scene. And after the love scene is over, the girl sits up and she puts a sheet over her breast to talk to the guy. I said, wait a minute, this is ridiculous. Don't even play that scene. If you can't show what's natural here, don't show it at all. It's distracting because people are wondering what she looks like under that sheet. Doing a
Yep.
love scene, you have to be honest. If you're not honest, you throw the audience subconsciously out of the scene. There's no way to grasp it. And the best thing to do, if the actress won't do it, is rewrite the scene.
Yeah.
Have it take place in a lounge somewhere in the house, but don't try to play it with her holding her. I mean, I've seen it. It's unbelievable. The only one who does it intelligently is Elizabeth Taylor. Did it a couple of times, but she did it so wisely, and it worked so well. But Millie did it, and she was wonderful. I have to tell you.
She was in Lady Coca too. Yeah.
Sorry.
She was in Lady Coca as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And you know, that was her on the hanging on the side of the car when it hit the pool. She said I could do it. She says, as long as I know I'm going to land in the water. I said, Millie, please, I can't. No, she says, I want to do it. She said, I think it'll be exciting. And of course, she turns out to be a guy anyway in the film. People very rarely get that. That's the whole idea, is that she's in drag.
Yeah.
It was that kind of film. You know, I did two films. The second one um, with what's her name?
Which film are you talking about?
The second film.
Fake Out?
Are you talking about Pia Zadora?
Rickless wanted me to do a second film, and Universal had done such great business with a real stinker film, okay, and some other film she made. They said, come with another film. So we did the second film with her. And it was really the black film. I did a black version called Lady Coco,
Hmm.
and the film with Pia Zadora. The second film, it's the same script because they gave me 2 weeks to write a script, and and you know, nobody ever said anything about it. They never recognized it. And I'm telling you about it. This is the first time I ever really admitted to the fact that I did this a white version and a black version, one with Pia Zadora and one with
Lola Falana.
Lola Falana. I mean, it was incredible. And you know, the film with Lola Falana, she went on the Tonight Show and she showed a clip and whatnot, and she did a whole thing. Was enormously successful. I mean, it sold really well around the country. And when the next one came with Pia, nobody ever said a word. No critic, nobody ever picked up. It was the same film.
Well, Pia Zadora, I actually like Pia Zadora. Of course, you directed her in Butterfly and Fake Out. I watched Fake Out in preparation for this too. I had a lot of fun with that. Um, Butterfly
That's the
was
film. Fake Out is the
Fake Out.
takeoff on
Yeah.
Lady. Yeah.
I, I I find Pia Zadora very amusing, very funny.
Pia Zadora has a lot of time. She got a bad rap from the
Yeah,
press. You know,
yeah.
when the press agent and Rick was sent us to Cannes
Hmm.
when the film was over, and he wanted to screen it in Europe first. So we screened it at the Cannes Film Festival,
Hmm.
and it was amazing. We got there 4 days, 3 days before we had to screen it, and we had no theater, we had no press, nothing. Okay. But I had a very sharp press agent who I had met at 20th Century Fox years before with Jayne. He was sharp as a, and he said, and we didn't even have a hotel. We had to sleep aboard Telly Savalas's rich friend's yacht when we went on the land, and I said, how are we going to get anybody? The only theater that was available was at 8 o'clock in the morning. I said, who the hell gets up at 8 o'clock in the morning? But it was the only legitimate theater we could get. And when the morning came, he and I got up, we ran out, we went down to the theater, the doors were all closed. We said, see, nobody showed up. When we opened the door, it was packed, absolutely packed. People were sitting on the armful, on the arm part of the theater, and it was all critics.
In the aisles, in the aisles.
In the aisle, they were sitting on the
steps.
ground in the aisles. It was unbelievable. And there I met my old buddy, what's his name?
Roger Ebert.
Huh?
Roger Ebert.
Roger Ebert. And Roger and I used to meet at the Cannes Film Festival every year and have lunch. And he was there, and the other guy, the little guy that was, what's his name?
The real famous guy. I'm drawing.
Anyway, there were about 4 or 5 critics there, and they all loved the film. Roger Ebert came out, he loved it.
Mhm.
New York loved the film. When it came to the East Coast, they just buried her. And they buried me along with it. And the whole idea was that what bothered them the most was that her husband financed the film. It was unbelievable. They underestimated, and I said to people at the time, I said, this picture is not going to find its own until many years go by.
Mm-hmm.
And we had at how many festivals, you can't believe, people came up to me, all students, film students, praising Butterfly. But at the time, it just ran into a wall.
It was up for Razzies. Like, they really went after you and Pia Zadora on that one. Yeah.
I'm sorry, they went after Pia and I, who?
The Razzie Awards.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I always answer with read the Variety Review. If you want to read something interesting, read the Variety Review of Butterfly.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing. They praised the production like you never saw. They said this film was made for under $2 million, and it looks like a studio $6 million picture. It was the greatest compliment they could. They said, no matter how you feel about the content,
Mm-hmm.
people in Hollywood were just too shocked.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what there was to be shocked about when you consider what's in movies today.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, but that was the basis of it. Look how pretty she is.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking at a picture of my wife here on the screen.
I liked Fake Out quite a bit, and not only did I enjoy Pia Zadora in it, but I mean Telly Savalas and Desi and excuse me, Desi Inez Jr. Um, all good in this movie, and I had a lot of fun with it. You have any stories about Telly Savalas for this movie?
Yeah, Telly was a real old buddy. We used to love to gamble together, especially in Las Vegas. The thing about it was that I'm a backgammon fan. And I used to play backgammon with Lucille Ball. She
Mm-hmm.
used to have people up to her house on Friday nights and she'd play. Of course, she never played for more than $1 a point, but she was fabulous. And she was the most righteous, right wing conservative you've ever met in your life. And she was so worried that her son was in the film. And she said, well, now you make sure you take care of him and don't do any funny stuff. I said, what are you worried about? I said, I got one scene. It's only a minute and a half of him in bed with 5 black hookers, and she almost fainted. Of course, it wasn't true. I never did that. But Tilly, I was working with Mario Puzo at
Mm-hmm.
the time that we were promoting, and he um, I shouldn't even say this, but he was a born gambler all the time. And Rickless always said to me, Matt, don't get involved with Mario either, but stay away from Telly because you're going to get killed. So we're in the casino in Cannes, and Telly and what's my agent's name? The agent,
I don't know.
Jack Gilardi. You ever heard of Jack Gilardi? He was every big actor's agent. We were buddies, the 3 of us. And Telly comes up to me. I'm sitting with uh, Mario Puzo, who would bet. Mario played roulette, and he always sat with about $50,000 in front of him, and he would play different numbers. Sometimes he played more numbers than I thought they would. And he always said, stay away from Telly. He'll give you bad habits. I said, oh my God. I was working with Mario. We get to the casino one night and he's with Jack Gilardi. And he comes over to me and he says, Matt, he says, there's a chemin de fer game over there. He said, I know I could beat that game. He said, give me 10,000 and I'll take another 10,000 and we'll buy in for 20,000. He says, I know I could destroy that game. There's a couple of guys from Saudi Arabia in the game. He said, and they're ready to go the heights. He says, and I think I can. I went back to Mario. I said, Mario, could you advance me 10,000? He said, what for? I said, Telly wants me to go partners with him. He says, you're going to go partners with that bum? Are you ready? Meanwhile, he's got 200,000 laying on the table. You're going to go partners with that bum? I said, look, for $10,000, I keep a friend. Anyway, I gave him the 10,000. Now, if you've been to Cannes, you know that the casino, you never get close to the chemin de fer game, okay? Because there's always a crowd around. Anyway, I go sit with Mario, and all of a sudden I see the crowd rumbling across the way after about 45 minutes. And I go over and I look through and I see there he is sitting with our 20,000 in front of him. and he's got a stack of chips. I said, "Oh my God, he's going to hit it big." Meanwhile, I want him to take $20,000 out of what he's got and play with the winnings. Then I don't give a shit what happens. But give me my 10,000 back. That's not Telly. Telly said, "Come on, man." And he sees me waving. I know he saw me waving to take 20,000 out, and he made believe he didn't see me, you know. Well, at the end of the evening, he's got a stack of chips a mile high. I said, "Oh my God." When I come up to him at the table and they shut the table down, I said, "Telly, let's take 20,000 out. You take your 10, I take my 10, and let's see what." He says, "That's what's wrong with you. You're always afraid to take a chance. Don't you know you kill the whole rhythm of the whole thing?" He told me, "If you go," I said, "Oh my God, he's nuts." Anyway, needless to say, the next day, he blew it all. And, and, and so in the movie that you saw, in Fake Out, at the end, he says, "Well, if you don't have the guts to go off," everything I said to him about I put it in writing so that he had to say it during the film. Anyway,
You
that's my Telly Savalas. But he
do
was
you
a great guy. He was a terrific guy. And his daughter, I used his daughter in another film that I had a battle with the rights for the rights to distribute a really good film. She was terrific in it. In any event, he was a very talented guy, more
do you ever
talented than people
do you,
knew.
I was going to ask, do you ever see Pia Zadora anymore?
Do I see her anymore?
Yeah.
I saw her about a year ago, about a
Right
year.
before the pandemic. You saw
What?
her a couple months before the pandemic started.
Yeah, a couple of months before the pandemic started.
How's she doing?
She's doing very well. She lives in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Rick left her pretty well covered, and she sings in this one place in Vegas. I don't know. I never went to hear her sing. I just
Mm-hmm.
met with her at her hotel with her daughter.
I
And
reached out to her after I had connected with you on here. I never heard back, but that's why I was wondering how she was doing. So but but I always found her very funny. I love her voice, very petite, uh very funny.
she was not without talent, you
Mm-hmm.
know, uh, but she took the wrong route. She had the
Yeah.
wrong manager. Rick always used to tell me, "Man, I'll fire him. Will you take over, Pia?" I said, "Are you out of your mind?" I
Mm-hmm.
said, "We'd end up killing each other." No way. But in any event, uh,
Well,
she
you
got
were
her
uh,
award.
yeah.
Huh?
No, no, what was you saying?
Well, she got her award. She
Mm-hmm.
won the Golden Globe.
Yeah. She was hilarious in the Naked Gun 33 and a third as well. A little cameo she made in that was she was so funny.
She was hilarious in what?
The Naked Gun 33 and a third.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Boom. Yeah, she took a
Yeah.
dive. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved her in that. You also worked with another lovely lady, Laurene Landon. Who's another one? I haven't reached out to her yet, but I've heard good things about her. But you worked with her in Hundra um, and Yellow Hair. You came, excuse me, Yellow Hair in the Fortress of Gold.
Yeah, Hundred was one of my favorite pictures. She is, Laurene never hit what she was capable of. She was really a good actress.
Hmm.
I met her on the lot at MGM. She had the film that was out where she played the wrestler with what's his name? What's the actor? All the Marbles. She had a film where she was a co-star with the guy that plays Columbo,
Peter Falk.
Peter Falk. It was called All the Marbles, and that was a big uh, Fox film.
Hmm.
Was it Fox or MGM? I can't remember, but I met her on the MGM lot, and I saw the film where she played the wrestler. She was terrific in it. All three of them, he and the two girls, were terrific. Uh, you never heard of All the Marbles?
I haven't, no. Interestingly enough.
She was magnificent in that. Her acting was terrific. And
Yeah, I'm looking her up here now.
and,
Yeah.
when this guy came to me and said, could you do a film called the big film at the time was the one with Schwarzenegger.
Conan the
And
Barbarian.
huh?
Conan the Barbarian?
Yeah.
Yep.
And he said, I bought all the sets from Conan. I bought all the costumes, the location. He said, all I need is a female barbarian. I said, well, fine. He says, and we shoot in Spain. And the way I was giving mobbed for Butterfly, I figured a year in Spain would save me.
Hmm.
So I accepted the deal, and my writer and I, we sat down, and in 3 days we wrote a script. I gave it to the Spanish producer. He loved it. We thought it was the biggest piece of crap we ever had, and we gave it to her. And he said, now it was April. He said, if you come to Spain now, we start pre-production and we start shooting in September. I said, oh my God, I'm getting away from here. And I'd never been to Spain up to that time. I said, I want to go watch some flamenco. I'm going to have a great time because this film was never going to be made. I get there and I'm having every morning till 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm watching flamenco. Fabulous, like you never saw. I'm living the wild life, like who cares about anything? And finally, the producer calls me up at the beginning of Spain. He says, we're ready to leave in 2 weeks to make Honra. I almost fainted. And I called my co-writer who's in another room in the hotel. I said, listen, you're not going to believe this, but these guys are ready to make that film. I said, we can't make it. We'll be run out of Hollywood. That's the worst script I ever saw. And just the way he gave it to me, I put it on my desk in my room. It was covered in dust. Well, anyway, I said, I think I know what we have to do. I said, every day the car comes to the set and takes us to the location. I said, in the car, we write the scene for that day. He said, Matt, are you crazy? I said, what else can we do? If we make this film, the Spanish will kill us. America will finish us. Anyway, that's how we made the film. Every day we wrote the script in the car. And what the Spanish couldn't understand, and they're terrific filmmakers, is how we had to make the film in continuity. And when I said, now we go back to this script, they said, you can't go back to that scene. I said, of course, we're going back to that scene. And he said, well, we already used that scene. It's okay. I mean, it was incredible. But she was fantastic. She was absolutely fantastic.
Oh, she looks beautiful. Yep.
She never rode a hearse. She never rode a horse in her life. And I gotta tell you, they put her on a horse. In 2 weeks, she was leaping. And the only battle I had with her, she insisted on doing her own stunts. And I said, yeah, I said, Jesus, I said, if you get hurt, I said, we're in big trouble. We got to stop it. She said, I won't get hurt.
Yeah, and Conan, they did their own stunts. Yeah.
And I have to tell you, when that film opened in Cannes at the film festival, the Spanish went out of their minds. They brought the stagecoach from the film up to Cannes, and they ran it through the town every day. It became the showboat for Cannes. Everybody wanted that. It ended up in 59 different countries by the time we got out of it. Was unbelievable.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about Gorgeous Women of Wrestling, G.L.O.W. I used to watch this back in the 80s, I got some memories there. In fact, I've had a few wrestling personalities on the show,
I'm so glad that you're not apologizing for watching it. Everybody I ever met, and I'm talking about famous people, always, well, I was running through the shows, and I stopped at that and I watched nobody. No, and then all of a sudden they're telling me the name of one of the characters. They know more about the film than I do. It was unbelievable. That was the magic show of all time. I didn't want to do it. I only did it because Reckless said, look, you owe me a favor. They're asking me for $500,000. He says, to make the film at my hotel. He said, I don't mind the 500,000, but I don't know who these people are. If they ever made the film, you I trust. I'll give you the 500,000. Make the pilot and the first 4 or 5 episodes. And so that's what I did. And I never believed it would be anything. But those
they're doing
girls,
it now. Yeah.
I ended up with 35 girls, but I auditioned 75. And I have to tell you, they ended up incredible. And I ended up loving every one of them. They were so special. They went really out of their way because they were not professionals. None of them were professionals.
If I remember correctly, and again, it's been a long time, but jog my memory here. Wendy Richter was involved with this, wasn't she?
Would you say this again?
Wendy Richter, she was at WrestleMania 1. She was the women's champion there, and she was involved with. Was she not involved with Glow?
Are you talking about the girl from our show that ended up when our show closed? She went over to become to work with in what's the big show name?
Well, the WWE.
The
Mhm.
WWE.
That was Tina Ferrari, the character
Yeah,
Tina Ferrari.
Tina Ferrari.
But I don't think
Okay.
the real
That
name
was
is Wendy
that was
Richter.
her. That was the name I gave her, Tina
Or
Ferrari.
maybe I'm thinking of Powerful Women of Wrestling. I might be thinking of that, but
Yeah, well, the guy who was the founder of Power Wrestling was the original guy at our show,
David
hmm
McCall.
David McLean. And
hmm
after one year episodes, or starting on the second year episode, he decided that he should be in charge and he
Okay.
should have his own show. And of course, ever since he did, he has never had a winner and he's lost all his money. In fact, he lost other people's money, because he said, look, I did Glow, you know. But he was the best announcer I ever had. He had that baby face, and he was terrific because I did everything with him. I put female underwear on him, and he had his thing, and I sent him out on Las Vegas Strip, and the girls ran out chasing him for their pay, and they stripped him of his tuxedo, and underneath he had the woman's clothes on. It was wild. It was wild. Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up watching wrestling. Um, I don't much I'm not much into the WWE now, although I like the women's wrestling. And the women are extraordinary in it. But I remember used to watching this. Shannon O'Brien was somebody I enjoyed with the green outfit and the red hair, and we lost Queenie, who was Queen Kong. Like so many, and usually it was the heel wrestlers. They just dominated these little female uh face female wrestlers, and it was always amusing to me. But you would have one or two on the side of good that would be able to put up a fight. But I always watched it.
Well, we had so many characters that, I mean, every week we'd turn out new characters, and
Hmm
add them to the roster. But we shot it all at the Riviera Hotel, and they supplied rooms for the girls and food. And most of these girls had never worked professionally at anything,
hmm
you know. They always had a dream of being something, but never were. But um, we
I'm trying.
coached. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, looking back, again, it's been a while, but what was the most? Do you remember any really unusual bouts that you put on, like cage matches or strap matches or anything like that with the girls?
No, they just did things that were so. I don't know. I had a girl who her name was Mountain Fiji.
Uh-huh.
She was the major character. None of the girls believe this. I said, she's going to be the major character here. because she's big and she's got appeal. And one time in the middle of a match, we had a little skinny girl. What the hell was her name? Uh,
Which
uh,
skinny girl? There were a lot of skinny girls.
was the one that moved to Utah. What was her name?
MTV?
MTV. And MTV was the bad girl, and Mountain Fiji was a good girl. And all of a sudden, one day, in the middle of a mad ruckus, she picked up MTV, put her over her shoulders
Over her head.
from the middle of the ring, and flung her out into the audience. I was in the control booth when I saw that. I said, "Oh my God, that girl's dead. If she hits her head or whatever, she's killed that girl." The girl survived, but it was incredible. She picked her up and literally flew her no less than 15 feet in the air into the crowd. And the people in the crowd couldn't believe what was happening. But we had stuff like that happening all the time.
Oh yeah, that was Eileen O'Hara playing
That's
oh,
right.
love that MTV Melody Trouble Vixen.
I think you could find that scene actually where she picked her up and just flung her. It was incredible.
Emily Dole was Mountain Fiji. Okay, all right. Some of
Yeah.
this is coming back to me. Yeah, I was born in the 70s, the early 70s, so I grew up with this stuff, but that's been so long. But I'm looking through like, Shannon O'Brien, I remember, Trisha Bowers. Okay.
You
So
know,
you used to,
wherever Matt goes, talking
mm-hmm.
about whatever subject, there are always Glow fans. Even when I talk about things, and I work in a corporate law department for
Uh-huh.
CBS, and when I talk about something, and then I mention I'm married to Matt, in the middle of these bunch of lawyers, people will pop up and go, "I used to watch Glow." Their Glow fans are everywhere.
I'm
Everywhere.
just
Unbelievable.
I'm just noticing something on here. This is interesting because you were mentioning Tina Ferrari. She went to WWE as Ivory.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I thought
She
that's who
started
you
on
were talking.
Glow.
That's who I thought you were talking about.
Okay. No, I wasn't, but you know what? How interesting, because I liked Ivory, yes. You still in touch with Ivory?
Once
Or at
in a
least,
while, I'm in
yeah.
touch with almost all of them.
No, there you go. Wow. How interesting. I love that. Now, what was it like putting a show like this together?
Oh my God. Oh my God. And you know, I did 100 shows and I did everything in the show. I'm telling you, and we never missed a date. The show had to hit the airwaves on Thursday afternoon, and we just got in with the tape just in time to the studio to send it to the stations all over the country. We ended up in 108 stations, if you could believe it. It's unbelievable how that show caught on and how the people loved it. And they said, when Rick said, maybe you should shut it down, I said, I'm going to shut it down or I'll end up in the madhouse because you know how many pregnancies I have every month. girls who want to go get,
Abortions.
yeah, which is outlawed now in the United States. I mean, it was, and then when they booked them on the road and I had to travel with them, oh my God, 2 buses loads of them was incredible. And every show they went to, they broke, they got, for that week, they got the highest rating you could imagine.
Yeah, I'm looking. Yeah, I used to watch Powerful Women of Wrestling. Yeah, that was what Wendy Richter was a part of. Okay. I get them a little mixed up there. Okay. Easy to do. But some of them were part of G.L.O.W as well. Like, I mean, Trudy Adams there, Brandy May was Farmer's daughter in G.L.O.W. She was part of both of them, you know? So there you go. Okay.
Okay.
Wow. Okay. Are you still in touch with any of the wrestling women?
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever they have a problem, they call me.
He's
They
friends with
call
them.
you. I don't imagine they have much problems if they were wrestling. They probably don't. They probably take care of the problems. I wouldn't mess with them.
No.
So, do you ever get to do the conventions?
Sorry.
Do you ever get to do the fan conventions?
No. No. But as funny you should ask, but I'm doing one this Saturday.
It'll be his first one ever.
It'll
Oh,
be the
wow. They're fun. They're a lot of fun.
And we're doing Comic-Con with one of the G.L.O.W girls this December, which is the first time he's ever doing that. He's just never done it before. But he's actually doing it as a favor for a friend of his who's representing him in the fan universe.
Mhm.
So we'll see how that goes. It's this weekend in Burbank
at the Marriott Hotel.
by the airport.
I don't even know what I'm going to do there. He said, I just signed an autograph. I've never been to one of these things, but
Well, Matt's curious to meet the fans one-on-one
Yep.
like that. Never really done that before,
I-
except when they've done certain exhibitions of, say, G.L.O.W episodes. And when the Netflix G.L.O.W came out, Matt was getting a lot of interviews and requests for interviews, and they made some appearances at places where the G.L.O.W girls, and he gave panel discussions. So the original G.L.O.W girls. So
I've done these podcasts, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but I
Well,
haven't done. I never went to a festival.
you know, I started doing them in 2017. A Canadian actress invited me to assist her at one, and it blew my mind. I loved it. I had so much fun. And I'm going to one this fall. I'm actually assisting the same actress, and yeah, it's going to be in Toronto, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I say enjoy, have fun with it. Uh, I think you'll have a blast. You'll probably hear some interesting stories about how a lot of fans have connected to these.
yeah, and it's amazing. He's frequently amazed at how young people are who are finding the show anew. Once he
Mhm.
was giving, they were doing a screening of one of his films in San Francisco, and they had him on the morning show where they would cut to interviews with him, in between the whatever Good Morning Today or whatever show was on. And he
Mhm.
was on the local news. And during one of his little interview segments, he talked about G.L.O.W. And the camera guy, who was a young kid, like in his early 20s, flipped out. He was like, I can't believe he did G.L.O.W. They're just, like I said, every time you turn over a stone, there's somebody there.
Yeah. What do you think of the new G.L.O.W?
Well, Matt had some issues with the way Mark Maron was presenting the character sort of loosely based on him, because Matt was never a smoker, never a drinker, you know, and it was, and they kind of, you know, they went on their own path and created their own story, when in fact, if they would have stuck to how G.L.O.W really was, and the first season was more truer to the actual show and the experience, that then they digressed and went a different direction, and it sort of spun a little out of control when Matt, when you see some of the scenes where they turned the wrestling ring into a cabaret show, that was a little strange. You know,
Yeah.
it went the wrong direction. Where had they, you know, the making of G.L.O.W was a series unto itself, and that would be a great story, but they didn't show the better parts of it. They didn't show the real behind the scenes.
Hold this, honey.
Yeah.
Anyway, Matt is having to get up.
I have to run to the bathroom. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Yeah, let's edit that part out.
She knows everything.
Actually, yeah. I actually don't know how to edit on here, but we could talk for a moment there, Lynn,
Okay.
about your background. You say you're involved with Paramount?
Paramount Global, which is now the parent company, and I've worked. My career started at Viacom in New York City, and then when Viacom bought Paramount, I was transferred from New York to LA. I worked at Paramount for 13 years, and then the giant Viacom company split itself in half, like an amoeba there. And anyone who worked on the television side of Paramount was transferred over to CBS. And that's where I continue to work as part of that division, but they're merging us all back together now under the name Paramount Global. And so I now kind of, I work for the overall company, and I manage the rights to all the shows in the library, which is over 3,000 television shows. But Matt has so many stories. The one story I was talking about to the lawyers was when he was starting out his career. He did a film that was loosely based on A Sensual Woman by Jay, the book. And he took it in a different direction. He made it funny, you know, and a comedy. He made a comedy out of it, but the publishers were very upset about about how he was telling that story, and they tried to prevent the film from being released. And they took him to court to get an injunction. And when he was fighting it, you know, he was listening to them cite these classic books, classic law books, called Nimmer on Copyright. And the lawyer's ears pricked up when I was telling about this story, and his attorney was trying to argue against how they were using these copyright books. And Matt finally said, well, who is this Nimmer guy? You know, let me go out and let me find him and get him to testify on our behalf. And his attorney said, you know, the guy's retired. You're not going to be able to get him to testify for you. And Matt's, well, what's he doing now? He's teaching at UCLA. And this was in LA, this trial. Matt said, I'm going over there and I'm going to find him. Lo and behold, he finds Nimmer, the author of all these books. He explains his story. The guy says to him, well, let me watch a screening overnight. And if you're right that they're characterizing my work wrong, I'll testify for you. Lo and behold, the man attends the screening, a private screening that Matt sets up in the middle of the night. And then he goes to court, and all the lawyers are abuzz. Like, who is this old guy sitting next to Matt at his table? And the judge says to him, can you please identify the person who's sitting with you? And the man stands up himself and goes, I'm Nimmer. And the other lawyers went crazy. Needless to say, Matt won his case because he had the authority, and he said, no, you're trying to argue a copyright violation when that's not the case at all. So Matt won his case. So Matt's stories are he's got so many great stories that just shock the heck out of people. But anyway, Matt has returned. I'll turn it back over to him.
Yep. Oh, wow. Lynn, are you going to the con with Matt this Saturday?
Yes. I always go to be his ears. to help
Oh,
him.
perfect. Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
you guys will have a blast. I love those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. And like I said, it'll be interesting Matt only gets to see his fans usually when he's on a panel. And then there'll be a
Mm-hmm.
little, like, maybe after the panel, some discussion and things like that. But and because of time constraints, he doesn't get to hang out. So it'll be interesting to have like real one-on-one conversations with people. He's looking forward to it.
Absolutely. You hooked in, Matt?
Yeah, he's back.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
back.
Well, Matt, I appreciate so much that you came on here today. Um, I just going to ask, is there any charities or a website or anything like that you want to plug on here before we close off?
Uh, Not really.
Okay.
I'm for all charities,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Uh, yeah, it becomes a very sad issue with me,
Yeah.
you know. I don't know. It's something that is maybe the most private thing, you know.
Okay. No, that's all right. Well, I appreciate so much that you allowed me the honor to interview you on the show today, and I appreciate you, Lynn, for connecting us and being on here today and chatting with us as well. Um, I'm just wondering, Matt, before we close off, would you mind doing a plug for my show?
No, not at all.
Just state your name and say you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
Uh, Greg Gilbert of what?
On Python's Paradise.
Of what?
Python's Paradise.
God,
Python, like the snake.
yeah.
Mhm.
Python's Paradise.
Yep.
What's the second word?
Paradise. Like in Eden. Paradise.
Yep.
Paradise.
Paradise.
Yes,
Yep.
you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
You're
There you go.
listening. You're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python Paradise.
Well, we have been chatting with Matt Cimber, the director of films like well, Glow, or the television show Glow, Gorgeous Women of Wrestling, and
Gorgeous
films like
ladies of wrestling.
Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. Well, the gorgeous women too.
Wow.
And of course, his work with Jayne relationship with Jayne Mansfield, of course Pia Zadora with Fake Out and Butterfly, and of course Laurene Landon with Hundra, and various films and a lot of talent. This guy. Thank you so much, Matt, for coming on here today and telling your story. I so appreciate it. And when this is ready, I'll send it off to you, Lynn, and you can post it wherever you
Please
want.
do. I would love to.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I would love to. Yeah. Are
Absolutely.
you a native Canadian?
Oh yeah, I've lived here my whole life.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm. And you're welcome
Um,
anytime.
you know, if the weather was different in Canada, I would move up there.
Well, it's nice and warm here right now.
Well, we hope you get out of all those wildfires.
No, it's a
okay.
fabulous place. And I
Mm-hmm.
like the Canadian people. I had a very well-known Canadian girl in G.L.O.W, and she was terrific.
Mm-hmm.
She left after 2 years. I don't know, she went somewhere where they offered her some big money or something, but she was terrific.
Absolutely. Well, I bid you both a wonderful day and enjoy the convention this weekend. Have a blast and relax and connect with the fans. Have fun, because
We
those
will.
things are fun. Absolutely. God
Hey,
bless you both.
thanks
Thank
a
you,
lot.
Greg.
You
Thank
too,
you.
Greg. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.